Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Professional Women's Career Change Success webinar. I'd like to thank you all for being here today, and I'd like to reassure you that if you're a professional woman who's not happy in her current job and is wanting to make a change, but maybe you're not sure how to do it, or you're not feeling very confident about doing it, or you don't even know what your ideal career would be, then you are in the right place. So I am Vari Gordon Preston. I'm a career coach, and I'm being helped today by Beverly, who is also a certified coach. And I would like to share with you that this is actually the first live webinar that I have ran, and so I've been feeling some nerves in the run-up to today, and I wanted you to know that for two reasons. Firstly, because in this webinar, and if you work with me on a one-to-one basis, I might ask you sometimes to do things that are outside your comfort zone, that feel a bit nerve-wracking. So I just wanted you to know that I don't ask you to do anything that I don't do myself. And the other reason I wanted to share that with you is that nerves are often just a sign that we're growing, that we're doing something new. And so they can actually be quite a good sign. So I wanted you to be aware of that. It was very powerful the day that I learned that. I remember it well. So just a couple of technical bits before we get started. Basically, everybody who's on this webinar, apart from myself and Beverly, is on mute. And I'm aiming to make this very interactive, so there will be lots of chances to ask questions and give your thoughts and ideas on things. And doing that is called raising your hand. So if you have joined us on the phone, the way to raise your hand is to press *2. And if you've joined us on the webcast, so you're just using your computer, then you will use the boxes to the left-hand side of your screen. And I think that we are going to be together for around about an hour this evening. Could be slightly less, could be slightly more. We'll see how it goes. So, how can you get the most from this webinar? Well, firstly, I hope that you have paper and pen with you, because you will be wanting to note down your own ideas and thoughts, and you may well want to note down ideas from the other participants in this webinar, and perhaps some of the things that I'm saying as well. So how this is going to work is that I will take you through all the different steps that I go through with my private clients. Now, obviously, when I'm working with them, we're working on a one-to-one basis, and it takes several weeks. And on this webinar, we've got about an hour, so you'll get a bit of an overview of things. But I'm hoping that you will go away from this webinar with some new thinking and some steps and actions that are going to take you towards your ideal career. So basically, when I ask different questions, you can either write down your answer for you to look at and learn from later, or you can share your thoughts by raising your hand. Now, in order to make sure that we all feel comfortable sharing, we need to keep everything this evening confidential. So Beverly and I are both certified coaches, so we already know to keep everything anybody says, whether it's in a webinar or a one-to-one session, we'll automatically keep that confidential. And I'd just like to ask that everybody on this webinar does the same. Because if we feel like this is a safe place in which to share, we're going to learn so much from each other. And not only that, but if it feels a little bit scary to share, then you're going to learn that doing something scary, that you can do it. You can do it well, and you can get some great feedback and learning and move forward from it. So, before we start to dive in, I'd just like to ask if anyone has any questions about what's going to be happening on this webinar, or if you'd like to request that certain career-related issues get covered. So you can raise your hand. So that was *6 if you're on the phone, and using the boxes on the left-hand side of your screen if you're using your computer for this webinar. So you go ahead and feel free to do that just now. And Beverly, it will be over to you to let us know what contributions are coming in. So I'm just going to go quiet for a moment while we wait and see what comes in. So Beverly, are you seeing anything come in?
No, there's no questions yet.
Okay, right. In that case, we're going to dive in, and feel free to ask your questions at any point. So the first thing I'd like to do is tell you a bit about me so that you know where I'm coming from and why I'm a career coach. I've actually changed career 3 times. I started out as a graphic designer, and I did that very happily for 10 years. And then I went travelling, and I discovered coral reefs and the underwater world. And I knew that I wanted to do something to do with science. And I hadn't done any science since I was about 14, so it was quite scary for me, and I got help from a career coach to make that change. So I did that very happily for a number of years. I was on the sort of conservation environmental side of science, and that led me into managing projects and staff and volunteers, and the volunteer side really appealed to me, and I ended up working for various charities running training programs for people who manage volunteers and giving advice on how to manage volunteers, and I absolutely loved that, really enjoyed it. The underwater world and the fish was always in my mind, and I decided to apply for a PhD in New Zealand. And that was all going nicely. Everything was sort of falling into place, and I was due to be emigrating. And then a series of things happened. So I was made redundant from the job that I loved, and my husband's lovely dog died, and then a friend of mine committed suicide, and then a close friend's sister died, then a relative of my husband died, and then the government decided to withdraw all the funding for my PhD, so the work visas disappeared, so that fell through. And then my beloved cat died, and my cats are like my children, so that was huge. And all these different bereavements and griefs had happened in about 9 months. So when this final one happened, I just basically fell apart, really. I felt suicidal for several weeks, and even when that feeling thankfully passed, I was actually spending a big chunk of each day just crying. I mean, I couldn't do everyday things like going to work, forget that. It just wasn't possible to go to work. And that went on for some time, and I began to look around for something that could help me. And there were 3 things in particular that were most useful. Firstly, there was emotional freedom technique, or tapping. Secondly, there was the law of attraction. Now, both of those are great for leading a happier life and for dealing with fears and worries and grief. and anything else that life throws at you. I'm not going to cover them in this webinar, but after the webinar you're very welcome to go research those, and I recommend them. They're both excellent techniques. So it was tapping and the law of attraction. And then the third technique, the main one that helped me, was coaching. I got a coach to help me rebuild myself and rebuild my life. And while I was going through the coaching, I remembered back to the first time I'd had coaching, which was in about 2002, and how powerful it had been and how much I'd enjoyed it. And a voice had said to me, go be a coach. So I finally listened to that voice, because as I was rebuilding myself and rebuilding my life, I realised that my previous careers weren't right for me anymore, and what I wanted to do was to help people in the way that I'd been helped. So I had gone from the very bottom to coming up with all these wonderful discoveries and rebuilding my life in such a fantastic way, better than it was before. And I just wanted other people to have that experience too. So I got trained in coaching and in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. So that's me in a nutshell. And Beverly, just quickly back to you. Do we have any comments or questions?
No, not yet, sweetie.
Okay. So in that case, I will move us on to the first step. Now I'm trying to move the slides on as well, so I'm hoping that what you can see in front of you matches what I'm about to say. So the first step will be that I'm going to ask you some questions, and knowing the answers to these questions can result in you never being miserable at work again. So how would that feel? So the first question is to ask you, what is leaving you miserable in your current career or job? So you are welcome to just make some notes for yourself, or you're also welcome to share. So if you're on the phone, that's *2, and if you're using your computer, you just use the boxes towards the left of the screen. So just to go into that question a little bit more while we wait to see if people would like to share with us, when I say what's leaving you miserable in your current career or job, different things could come up for people. So for instance, it might be the actual tasks that you're doing. It could be the organisational culture. So perhaps you're a very innovative person, and where you're working now, they like the tried and trusted methods. They don't really feel comfortable trying anything new, and so that doesn't work for you. Or maybe there's lots of criticism and you don't get praise for all the great stuff that you're doing. So just have a think about that. What in the organisational culture is not working for you? And it may actually be things are around the job as opposed to the job itself. So perhaps it's the length of your commute, or your working hours. Perhaps when you started you were happy to do full-time, and now things in your life have changed. Maybe you've got a family, or there's other things you want to pursue, and actually you really want to be working part-time. Or perhaps the job is affecting the other areas of your life, like health, relationships, etc. So just have a bit of a think about that and start to write down what you think's not working for you. Now, there are many possibilities about what's leaving you miserable, so I definitely want you to come up with your own ideas, because it's different for everybody. And there is another thing that I'd like to throw into the mix, and that's to wonder if there's anybody listening who's doing their current job because of things that they believe about themselves or the world. So, for instance, maybe you know what you truly want to do, you know your ideal job, but you just believe that you're not good enough. You've got that belief from somewhere and it's stuck. Or possibly, again, you know what it is you want to do, but perhaps it's something more creative or unusual, or it's a popular career choice, and various people have said to you things like, oh, that's too competitive, or you can't get paid much for doing that. Or maybe you've got a slightly different story. Well, the good news about these kind of beliefs is that a belief is a thought that we've had many times. We've had it so many times it's become kind of automatic, and we now apply it to many different situations. So it may not actually be true, and beliefs can be changed, so we can think thoughts that are more supportive to our job hunt and that help us find our dream career and ideal job. So Beverly, before I move on, any questions coming in?
No.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I'd just like to encourage everybody listening, do feel free to speak up. This is a very safe place, and whatever you're going through, many people are going through the same thing as well. So we often have the same fears and worries and concerns about the situation. So basically, there are no silly ideas, there are no silly questions. They're all great questions and really useful to talk about. Okay, so once you have spent some time working out what's leaving you miserable in your current job, and when you know what's not working for you, then you have some options. So what could be your options now you know what's not working for you? So here's some options that I've come up with, but, please use your options, your ideas first. Okay, so now you know what's not working. Are they things that can be changed? Could a simple conversation iron them out? Or are you willing to consider changing so that things feel better? Now, I'm not talking about putting a round peg in a square hole. I would never encourage anybody to do that. But could there be some changes in attitude? Changes in the way you look at things? Because a change in attitude and how you approach things can be a real powerful way of dealing with a situation. And of course, a third option is, nope, it's just time to leave. It's time to find my dream career and it's time to go do it. So now I'm going to move us on to the second step. And the questions that I'm asking here and the activities that I get my private clients to do are all about ensuring that you discover which jobs you'll enjoy and which organisations you'll be happy at. So basically we're going to create a profile of you and of your ideal employer. And when you put those two things together, you've got a powerful tool for knowing where to look for your ideal jobs. So my first question to you is, what activities or tasks make you come alive? What types of people make you come alive? settings or environments make you come alive? Now, for some people, it's really easy to answer these questions. For other people, it's a bit harder. Some people answer them and then go away and think about it and actually realize that may have been true a few years ago, but it's not really true now. So wherever you might fall in that, I would actually encourage you to go away from this at the end of this webinar and dig a bit deeper. And the reason for digging deeper is that our preferences are often overlaid by other people's. So it could come from parents or other family members, from teachers, from the media. There are all sorts of sources, and often people mean really well. They often mean to keep us out of danger, keep us safe. The problem is that their thoughts are based on their lives and their experiences, and I think we all know that all of us are different and the world changes. So what may have been absolutely true a while ago may not be true today, and it may not be true for you. So here are some activities that you can do to get in touch with what you truly want from your career and what truly makes you come alive. So the first suggestion is meditation. And I have found that 2 minutes a day can make a difference. So if you've never meditated before, feel free to start with 5 seconds and work up to 2 minutes. But even just 2 minutes can make a real difference. And there's lots of instructions and tutorials online to find out how to do it. And there's a great website called Just a Minute that has some recorded meditations. The second technique I would encourage you to use is creating a vision board. So that's where you collect images and words and phrases that reflect what makes an ideal career for you. Now, don't worry about how it looks to anybody else, because it's not aimed at anybody else. It's purely for you. So you can get pictures from magazines or from the internet and stick them onto a corkboard. And I really do encourage you to create a physical one. I know there's lots of ways to do this online now or on your phone, and those are great. It's just that a physical one on the wall, somewhere you'll see it every day, is even more effective. And if vision boards are new to you, again, there's lots of instructions online. So a third technique is visualization. And if you've not done that before, it's quite simple. It's a bit like daydreaming, except you actively decide what you're going to daydream about. So you can visualize you're in your ideal job. Where are you? What are you doing? Who's with you? How are you feeling? Another great method is getting to understand the dreams you have at night when you're sleeping. There is a really good book called The Top 100 Dreams, and that tells you the meanings of all the most common dreams, basically, and explains them in a way that makes sense, and even gives you suggestions for things that you can do in your life to turn things around. So it's really helpful as well for getting in touch with you and what you're thinking on a deeper level. And daydreams, you can pay attention to your daydreams. So that's 5 methods for helping you answer these questions on a deeper level. What activities, people and settings make you come alive? So Beverly, I'm just going to check back in with you. Do we have any comments or questions coming in?
No, not at the moment, but I have one, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah. When you talk about the daydreaming, and you said that there's a book with the top 100 dreams, how did you come about that?
The top 100 dreams, that's actually for the nighttime dreams.
Okay, so to find out what your dreams mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for instance, I think dreaming of flying is quite a common dream that many of us have, and interestingly, dreaming about your teeth crumbling, that's another common one.
Oh, my.
So I just happened to see that in a bookshop one day, and I was drawn to it, and it's a very good book, and it really does help you get in touch with what's going on in the bits of you and your heart and your mind that may not be instantly accessible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
My pleasure. That's what I'm here for. So thank you for that question. So my next question to everybody is, what skills and talents do you love using? And I'll give you a little hint here. It's not necessarily the skills that other people value in you. It's all about what you love doing. So if I can give you a quick example, there's a woman that I'm working with, and one of the glowing bits of feedback that she gets from her manager is that she's very good at keeping track of the details on a project, and that they really value her for that, and it's been incredibly helpful. And she's, a really valued member of the team because of this. Now, obviously it's nice to get great feedback, but the irony is that this woman is actually, within herself, she's not actually a detail person. She's a big picture person. That's what inspires her. She loves starting things. She loves creative thinking. She doesn't really want to worry about the nuts and the bolts and the pennies or the cents. So every time she gets this feedback that's meant to be encouraging, it just reminds her that she's not in her ideal job. So when you're thinking about what skills and talents you love using, it's all about what you think. It's got nothing to do with what anybody else thinks. So now we're going to do some thinking about your ideal employer. So I'd like you to imagine that you are now in your ideal job and you're at your ideal employer. What are the things that they really care about, whether it's your manager or whether it's the organisation as a whole? What's really important to them? So for some organisations, it's about hitting monthly targets. For others, it's about taking real good care of staff. For another organisation, it might be about being number one in customer service. And for another organisation, it could be about saving the planet. So your ideal employer, what's really important to them? Another question is, what sort of working environment are they offering? Is it fast-paced, adrenaline-driven? Is it quiet and reflective? Another really important question that will help you make a really good fit with an organisation is, what's the organisational culture? So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. I was listening to a radio show the other day, and there was a manager from a coffee shop talking. It's one of these big chain coffee shops. And he was saying that he loves to encourage the staff in his particular shop to try new things. And he doesn't care if the things work out in the way that was expected, or if there's an entirely different result, or if things, quote marks, go wrong. He says that whatever happens, everybody's learned. And he encourages people to try new things, and there's no sort of punishment for, again, quote marks, getting it wrong. So is that the kind of organisational culture that you enjoy? Or what other aspects will be ideal for you? And another good question to make sure that you fit with to make sure that you and your manager are a good fit is to think about what's your ideal management style. So I'm talking now about the person who's managing you rather than the way you might be managing. So do you like somebody who shares objectives with you and then lets you go off and get on with them? Or do you want someone who gives you lots of detail about how to get things done and likes to check up on progress frequently? So just think about all the different aspects of the ways you've been managed in the past and what really worked for you. Another great way of looking at this is location. Where do you want to be working? Do you picture yourself in the centre of a city or in a rural office? Are you partly based at home? Are you travelling, whether it's locally or internationally? Are you out and about? So there's some suggestions of how to describe your ideal employer, but you keep going with this and feel free to think of more categories and things that would work for you. And what you're going to do is you will put together the answers about you and about your ideal employer, because putting them together will give you fantastic information about where to start finding your ideal job. So Beverly, do we have any questions coming in from people or comments?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Anything you'd like to ask?
I never actually thought about, it's quite informative because I never actually thought about going into so much detail to find the ideal job. I think a lot of people out there, they're like motivated by money more than they're actually motivated by finding the ideal job for them and the ideal location and what the manager is like and all the different details you were giving us.
Yes, I agree. There's a whole range of motivation out there. I think that when it comes to thinking about career change, so if somebody's done a career and it's either it's not worked out for them or it worked out for years, but now they're ready for change, and I think particularly with people who've had bad experiences in the past, so whether they've ended up somewhere where, for instance, bullying is allowed and that just goes unchallenged for months or years, or whether there's been just a complete clash between them and their values. I think this does happen with people. I think sometimes people aren't always entirely aware of what's going on. They just know they hate their job.
Yeah.
And they haven't worked out why.
Yeah.
So it can be very helpful to go into this level of examination, and particularly if you're considering retraining or something like that, or relocating. You know, you want to do everything you can to make sure that you and the organisation are a great fit and that you're going to be happy there. Because we do spend a lot of time at work, so we may as well be happy there.
Yeah. And actually being aware of what we actually desire in our job, which is great if you can get that sort of information.
It is, yes, I agree. And I'm going to talk a bit later about how this level of thinking about things can actually put you ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So thank you. That was great feedback. I appreciate that. So in this next step, the questions that I'm going to ask you are all about how you can make the most of your experience for good money. Because there can be worries with career change about how that's going to impact the income side of it. So, the first question I'd like to ask you is, what are your worries about what might happen when you change career? And if something popped up as you heard that and you thought, oh no, that's too silly, go for it. Really go for it. Make sure you put that down or share it with us just now. The scarier things seem, or the sillier they seem, or the more they tap into some sort of emotion for you, the more important they are, and the more dealing with them is going to help you really get into your ideal job and your ideal career. So, does anybody feel brave enough to share with us their worries about what might happen when changing career?
We have a quiet bunch today.
And that's fantastic. It's wonderful that we have so many different types of people in the world. People who love to speak up and be heard, and people who like to sit back and observe and think about things. Okay, so in that case, I will jump in with some of the common ones that I hear about from people. And obviously, as we go through, if you feel minded to share, please do. I'm actually just going to have a sip of water. Bear with me. Okay, so some of the common worries that people have about changing career are that they're going to have to start at the bottom. You know, they're used to a certain level of tasks and respect and perhaps nice perks, and that's all going to go. So that's one of the worries. Another worry is that there's going to be less money coming in. A third is if they want to sort of up sticks and do something else, they're not going to be taken seriously. A fourth is about having to retrain, and that's going to take years and be very expensive. And a fifth one is I'm too old. I'm too old to make that change. So I don't know if anybody listening resonated with any of those, if any of those sounded familiar. So I'll just pick a couple and talk about those a little bit. So having to start at the bottom, it's possible, but it's not set in stone. If you're a professional woman, you have got some amazing skills, and those skills will transfer into other areas of work. So it would be good to do some research before deciding, because that may well not happen for you. And it's a bit similar thing with less money, really. The answer to that is it depends. If you've got, for instance, a senior partner in a corporate law firm, and they want to change and do very hands-on childcare work, it's very likely that they're going to have a salary drop. But what if it's somebody going the other way, going from childcare into the legal field? It's likely that their income's going to go up. So again, do some research, and we're going to talk about how to maximise the experience and skills you do have. Now, as for not being taken seriously, career change is very, very common these days, whether it's intentional or accidental. Lots of people do it. Having to retrain. So to some extent that depends. There may be certain things, I think probably the law and healthcare spring immediately to mind, where training will be needed, training of some sort likely to be needed. But again, do some research, because I don't know. I don't know your situation, I don't know your existing skills, so you need to find out for your particular situation. And it may well be that your existing qualifications and training mean that you can be exempted from some of the training as well. And there may be part-time options and all sorts of exciting opportunities for you to explore. As for being too old, that's a really interesting one. Some of the time we're worried that we're too young, and then I find that for many of us it switches at some point to I'm too old. So at first we're too young for more senior positions, and then suddenly we become too old for things. So it's an interesting one, and it's worth thinking about. And obviously ageism does exist in the world. But if you craft a compelling case for why you are the best person for the job, you have as much chance as anybody else. And if there's something that you're burning to do, and you put it off because you're saying to yourself, I'm too old, so in 5 years' time, what's going to happen? You'll still want to do it, and you'll be 5 years older. So I invite you to consider taking the plunge now. Why wait? So Beverly, do we have any comments or questions?
Oh, not at the moment.
Okay. So in that case, I am going to ask you all, how can you find out what your ideal employer wants? How can you find out what your ideal employer is after in the person who's going to do the job that you most want to do? So what are your ideas on that? And it's important that you go with your ideas because they're going to fit your ideal employer and your own style of doing things as well. So note some of those down first, and then here are some of my ideas. You can get in touch with someone at your ideal organisation and ask them to give you 30 minutes of your time, and you're going to ask them all sorts of questions about what's valuable to them in their employees. So what skills and attributes are they looking for? What kinds of issues do they have to deal with again and again, and so that you can learn how you can be different? There's also work shadowing, so that's where you spend some time, perhaps it's a day or a week, with somebody who's in a role similar to what you're interested in, and you actually observe them on a daily basis so you can get to see what they do, how they interact with people, what the pressures are, and what the upsides are. There's also volunteering or going for an internship. Volunteering can be a much smaller time commitment than being an intern, so you don't have to give up your job to do some volunteering. And then there's industry magazines, because they'll help you see what the burning issues are in the industry, what's going wrong, what's going right. And they often interview leaders in the industry you want to get into as well. And similar to that is LinkedIn groups, where you can see discussions between people in your dream job to see what they're looking for and the challenges that they're facing. So Beverly, can I just check with you? Have any thoughts come in on that area?
Sorry. No, not at the moment.
Okay, not to worry. So now I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you have done different types of research, your own ideas, and picking from mine if they feel useful, and you now know what your ideal employer wants from a person who's going to do your dream job. So how can you create a great resume or CV or application? So if you have ideas on that already, that would be great. Feel free to share them, or of course feel free to be writing them down. So one of the ways to do that, to write a great resume that's going to persuade employers that you can do what they're after. It's called a functional resume or a functional CV. So most people tend to take a chronological approach, and that just means you start with your current job or your last job and you work backwards. And you talk about what your job title was and what you did in that role. Now, the functional CV or resume takes a different approach. Now, it can require a bit more brain power, but it is really worth it. It really does pay off. So what you're going to do is you will look at your employment history, your volunteering history, your general life history in a different way, and you will pull out the skills and experiences and learning points that are most relevant to your ideal job, which is why the step before this was to find out what your ideal employer is looking for. So now when you write your resume or your CV or your application, because you can use this approach with job applications as well, you're going to let them know straight away. You're going to grab their attention really quickly by answering what they're after before they've even asked it. So you're not going to waffle on about, well, first I did this and then I did this. It's all about what the value that you have created, the results that you've made in a way that's relevant to the job that you want to do. So, for instance, let me give you an example. So let's say there is a mum on the call and she wants to be a project manager. So project managers, they manage people, they manage budgets, they manage the different tasks that get done, and they set the order that they need to get done in, and they need to make sure everything gets done in time as well. So if we think about a mum for a moment, so she has to make sure that all the kids are in the right place at the right time, whether it's getting to school or whether it's going to their activities. She is managing a household budget. And she's also got 1,000,001 tasks to do. So she needs to make sure if the football kit is needed on the Wednesday, there's no point washing it on the Thursday. So that's a bit, it's a bit of a sort of exaggerated, silly example, but I think it will get the point over to you that you can make any life experience that you've had, you can draw out the relevant skills for your new area. So that's called a functional resume or CV, and there's absolutely loads of information about it online if you want to know more. And the reason why this is so important is because when a job is advertised, or even without an advert going out, managers and people who are doing recruitment often have to look at many, many applications. Now, I've done some recruitment myself, and we were often looking at 30 plus applications, and I know that many people are looking at somewhere between 50 and 200. So if you've got to get through 200 applications, just put yourself in that person's shoes for a moment. They're going to pick the people who are telling them straight away how they can do the job and the things they've already done that proves they can do it. And if they're not seeing that quite quickly, then the application goes in the discard pile. And that's such a shame, because often the person could do it, they just haven't worded it properly. So just have a bit of a think from that point of view. Put yourself in the recruiter's shoes when you're doing your CV. So Beverly, I just want to check with you. Have we had any thoughts or questions come in?
No, but I think I'd just like to say that I think there are actually some really good points you're making, especially with the way the situation is at the moment, getting jobs. So there's a lot of people applying for them. So it is really important to stand out when you send your CV and your job application.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you for making that. That's a really nice way of summarising it. I did all that waffling, and you said it's important to stand out, and I love that. So thank you. That was really helpful.
You're welcome.
And what you've said really ties in with something that I was going to mention next, which is something for everybody to think about, which is that career changers who have the right attitude are more focused than regular applicants. You are doing more research, and you're thinking about things from the employer's point of view, and you are learning how to highlight your skills. So as a job changer, you can actually end up ahead of the other applicants. So rather than thinking, oh, you know, I'm a bit worried about career change because I don't have experience in that industry, you can actually end up ahead of people who do have experience in that industry because you've approached this the right way. So the next step, the questions that I'm going to ask you about are going to result in you reducing your job finding time. And I deliberately say job finding rather than job hunting because I don't know many people who want to be job hunting. I know people who want to be enjoying their dream job in their ideal career. So we definitely keep the focus on job finding. So with that in mind, what are your ideas for how to be doing effective job finding? So feel free to share them. While we wait for people to hopefully share their thoughts, I'll just share some of mine. So I would suggest you have a plan, and it doesn't. Now, when I say plan, it's a plan that's in your style. So whether that's a detailed spreadsheet or a few post-it notes, you do it in your style. Just have a plan, and I recommend that you start with the final step. So let's assume your last step is, I am enjoying my first day in my fantastic new job. And step before that, maybe that was, I sent a thank you card to the person who interviewed me. And the step before that is, I did a great interview in which I showed people all the fantastic skills that I have that will mean I'll be great at this job. And you just work backwards, you keep working backwards to today, and you fill in the blanks in between. And it can be very helpful to get some feedback from somebody on that plan. So maybe it's somebody who's already doing your ideal job, or somebody who works for your ideal employer. Maybe it's a career coach. Just have a think about who could give you good feedback on that. And I also encourage you to get someone who will help you stick to the plan. I bet there's people on this call who know somebody who started a novel but hasn't finished it, or who have started an exercise program, and 3 or 4 weeks later it just falls by the wayside. So get some help with sticking to your plan now. Perhaps that's a like-minded friend who's also job hunting. And I would also make sure that you're using the most effective methods. So we're going to talk about a bit about that in the next step. So my next question to you is, how can you surround yourself with people who will support your job find and support you? So do you have ideas on that you'd like to share? And while you're all thinking about that, I will share my experiences. So for instance, my support team, there's my coach, and there is my mastermind group. That's a great technique for anything that you want to do in life. And I would also include the lady who gives me massages, because they recharge me, help me feel good again. So you can include anybody in your support team. It could be a positive friend, it could be a career coach, it could be friends and family if they've got the right attitude and are helpful. Beverly, have any thoughts on this topic come in?
No, sorry. Not yet.
Okay. Could I put you on the spot and ask you if you have a support team and who's in it?
Yes, I do. I have a marketing coach, and I also have a friend. Well, I have quite a lot of coach friends and people that work in personal development that I collaborate with on a daily basis through social media. Where we help each other with different questions, and if we're stuck on some technical stuff, or if we're going through something that we desire some answers for. I'm also a member of a mastermind group like yourself. And I also, as I work with energy healing, I also make sure that I receive energy healing.
Fantastic. So you are topping yourself up so that you are able to give to others. Yeah,
exactly, and it's very important. And I think even no matter what line of work you're in, it's essential that you feel good about yourself and within yourself.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That's wonderful. And I think especially as women, we're often in several different caring roles of one type or another. So it's even more important that we are getting some support and help ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm hoping that you're all having some ideas on who could be in your support team, and those could be people who are already in your life, or they could be the types of people you would like to have in your life. So whether it's a case of seeking out a mastermind group, or a career coach, or sounding out different friends to see what their attitude is about going for your dream job, because you want to make sure anyone that you're talking to, you want to make sure that they're supportive of that whole concept. You definitely don't want to be talking to somebody who's saying things like, when you tell them how excited you are about going for your dream job, I'll just ask you to consider what's going to be the impact on you if they turn around and say something like, oh no, you'd better play it safe and get an admin job, or oh, you can't make money doing that. No, that's way too much. No, go and work in an insurance firm. So, I mean, maybe insurance is your dream job, and that's great. But just have a think about the right kind of people to be in your support team. So a career coach, a like-minded friend, a mastermind group. Some people recharge by spending time alone. So by all means, go for a walk in the countryside and make sure you're recharging. Have a mix of things in there. And I would also just ask you to be a bit aware of the media that you are allowing into your brain, because if every time you pick up your favourite newspaper, you're getting messages about there's a terrible recession and it's so hard to find a job, again, I'd just like you to consider for a moment what impact that could have on you. And while I know there are people out there who are really struggling, and I completely feel for them, there are also people out there every day who are getting their dream job. So by all means, be supportive of the people who are dealing with difficult things, but just remember to also spend time with and read about people who are succeeding. Okay, so the next step is about getting hired fast, because employers feel good about you, even if you've not worked in their industry before. Now, one of the most common methods in a job hunt is to look at jobs that are being advertised on the internet. Various different ways of doing that. That's one of the most common methods of doing it. Unfortunately, it's one of the least effective ways of doing it. So I'd like to invite you to consider the idea that you don't have to wait for job adverts to come up. Once you know your ideal employer, you can actually start contacting them. So with that in mind, what are your ideas for steps that you can take to get an appointment with someone who can hire you for your dream job? I'm just going to reword that slightly because that was quite a long question. What can you be doing to get an appointment with someone who can hire you into your dream job? So your ideas here, based on your strengths and based on what the culture of your ideal organisation, they're going to be the best ideas here. So, for instance, I'll give you another extreme example. Somebody who is wanting a job, a creative job in an advertising firm, probably going to do very different things to somebody who wants a job managing risk in an insurance firm. Very different takes on how to get taken seriously there. So this is where your research on your ideal employer comes into play again. And this is about getting an appointment with somebody so that they can get to know you. It may lead to a job offer straight away, or it may lead to further appointments so that both of you can get to know each other better. And then when you do get an interview, again, thinking about how you can best present yourself and how you can highlight your relevant transferable skills and why you are, well, to use Beverly's phrase, how you can stand out. So you want to stand out in the right way, in a way that's appropriate, but you also want to stand out and be the one that they can't wait to have working for them. Okay, so Beverly, just before I move on, do we have any comments and questions?
No.
Okay. So, if you like what you've discovered about yourself in this webinar, then, or if you like the way that I'm encouraging you to think, then please close your eyes. So if you are ready to love Monday mornings, you absolutely love them. You cannot wait to get up on Monday morning and go to work because you love your job. And then I'd like you to take a moment to think about all the reasons you wanted to be on this webinar today. And I'd like you to remember why your current job isn't working for you. And now, I'd like you to imagine you are in your ideal job. I'd like you to just picture, where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? How are you feeling about it? How has it improved the other aspects of your life? How has it improved your bank balance? So I have lots of ideas and techniques that can help you make all of that a reality. And I've put them into the Professional Women's Career Change Success Program. So, and feel free to open your eyes if you'd like to. If you want to get personalised support to get you into your ideal job, then email me at coachvari@gmx.com, and that address is on your screen at the moment. And we will set up a time to talk about how I can help you get your dream job. We can clear up any concerns that you might have. We can talk about pricing and payment plans, and I can answer any questions that you've got. So you can email me to have that conversation tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. But the sooner you do it, the sooner you are getting towards your brilliant career. And I love to reward women who take action. So you will get a 20% discount off the program price if you are making your first payment by Monday, March the 3rd. So if that is sounding good to you, then I really encourage you to email me right now or tomorrow at the latest. So if you're interested, but you've got some fears about the cost, or you're not sure if it's going to work for you or if it's right for you, don't worry. Have the you email me and we'll set up a time to talk. We will have a no pressure conversation. We'll thrash it all out, and by the end of the conversation you will either know yes, it's right for me and I want to go forward, or you'll know it's not right for you and we will part as friends. I also invite you to get my twice monthly career tips, so you can see how to do that on the screen just now. And Beverly, do we have any outstanding questions?
No.
Okay. So I would like to thank you for being on this webinar today. Feel free to get in touch with me. I'm here to answer all your questions. And I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day. So thanks again and goodbye.